Hello, BC students. Professor Montesino here. Just going to be giving you an update on the course material and then also to try to highlight some things about our multimedia writing project. So the first thing is I don't know if you have access to the course yet. To the book yet. And so I want to make sure that I did let you know I provided the information for our first chapter, but also I'm going to be providing just a page about the one thing I wanted to highlight. And I'm going to try to get that pulled up really quick just so that you know what I'm wanting to see. So, and then of course, after that, I'm going to be going over how I want you to do your first major assignment. So that's just going to be something we'll be thinking about as well. Let me get this all squared away. There we are. So let me share my screen and we'll get started. So this first thing I just want to share with you is simply just something that you found on your on your textbook, The Writer's Mindset. Simply is how to write with clarity. And I'm just going to try to spend a little bit of time on this just so you have an understanding of what I'm talking about. So the first thing on here, it says, does each sentence include only one idea? This is a common mistake that writers make in that they are trying to cram way too many ideas into a single sentence. Even if you do it all correctly with grammatic, having too many ideas can simply be confusing. Instead, creating new sentences for each idea can improve the clarity of a sentence that's too long. For example, one of the most famous French painters, Pierre-Auguste Renoir, was actually better at singing than he was at drawing, at least initially. But one can argue that because Renoir lived close to the Louvre Gallery in Paris, where he frequently visited to ponder the paintings as a refuge from his boring job at a porcelain factory, Renoir developed an artist's eye. You'll notice that it has too many ideas in it. Even though it's grammatically correct, it tumbles on itself. A revision. One of the most famous French painters, Pierre-Auguste Renoir, was actually better at singing than he was at drawing, at least initially. Renoir had a job at a porcelain factory that he found quite boring. To relieve his boredom, he frequently visited the Louvre Gallery in Paris, which was near his home. One can argue that these frequent visits help Renoir develop an artist's eye. You want to play with having short sentences. That doesn't mean you have lacking of complexity. What that means is that thinking about how to contain one idea. So this thing because that thing in one contained sentence, that's going to serve you way better than trying to hit multiple points in the same sentence. It's also going to help you lead to more development. And you'll notice the word I said there, because. That is what's called a subordinating conjunction. And you can just Google subordinating conjunctions all over the place. Subordinating conjunctions. And any subordinating conjunctions that you can find, these are all tools so that you can write better. So that is a great way for you to add complexity and depth to a sentence without having too many ideas in one. So that's just a great tool to think about. Second, can vague words and expressions be completely replaced with concrete nouns? And the answer is simply yes. You want to make sure you're thinking about that. Concrete words are easy to visualize and thus easier to understand. It's easy to imagine what a chair is, but not easy to visualize an object because that can refer to many things. Improve your clarity by using words that are more concrete in place of words that are abstract. For example, the politician's speech covered certain noble ideas that she valued. Noble ideals is way too vague. It doesn't provide enough information. Give us concrete information to help us understand a thing. Third, is the antecedent of each pronoun clear? This one's a tricky one. Many students often like to use things like this or it to try to represent an entire idea. So another common error that contributes to unclear sentences is the use of a pronoun without a clear antecedent. Make sure your pronoun has a clear antecedent nearby so that it can be easily identifiable. For example, the people who live in the town say they still use an old-fashioned cash register in the drugstore, and they prefer to do it that way. What we don't know is who they is referring to anymore. The people who live in the towns say that the drugstore clerks still use an old-fashioned cash register. The townspeople prefer doing their transactions in this old-fashioned way. It's more clear. Another mistake, and I want to add on to this, is trying to use the word this, they, or other pronouns to try to connect to a whole idea when a pronoun can only be used to represent a person or a place or a thing, a single noun. So think about how you can reword sentences to use less pronouns and to be more clear. Pronouns are beneficial, they're necessary, but if you're trying to use too many at once, it can just unclear the meaning. And the final one, can a thought be expressed in a simpler way? The best way to think about this is, can you make your ideas more simple? For example, in due time, one can predict addiction to the habit of vaping due to the problem of nicotine addiction. The biggest issue here is there's too many what's called prepositional phrases. So it's going to be to the habit of vaping, to the problem of. So that to of. And so instead, try to think about how to use fewer words. When I was in college, the answer was 25 words or less. Because nicotine is addictive, vaping can become addictive. It's simple, it's sweet, it's to the point. So that was the one idea. The second thing I want to share with you all is simply your multimedia project. This is 10% of the course grade, and it is going to be due on the 11th of October, so that's a pretty quick turnaround. So I want to make sure you just have plenty of time to know and think about it. It's going to be 750 to 1,000 words with an accompanying visual. Note that the visual does not count to your word count because it's a visual, and neither does your works cited. So you have to have the meat of the material is 750 to 1,000 words. So part of being a writer is to consider the ways that writing is all around. Knowing that many of you will pursue various pathways in your career, it's important to consider how you can insert your voice into the public sphere and consider how to approach your writing to appeal to a different audience. Choose one of the chapter projects from either Chapter 5, Chapter 7, or Chapter 8 from the writer's mindset. Each of these chapters has a different purpose for writing. Chapter 5 is to reflect, Chapter 7 is to analyze, and Chapter 8 is to evaluate. And there are various genres to achieve your goals, such as writing a blog post, a newspaper article, an essay, a website article, etc. Choose one of these projects to accomplish. So there's a series of projects in the back of each chapter. There is a lot of freedom here, but you must get your approach approved regardless of which project you choose. So I need to know what chapter you're doing, what genre you're going to write, and what project you're going to accomplish. So I need to know all three of these things. Most of the chapter projects require some form of research, usually 1 to 2 sources, and so works cited will be expected whenever research is involved. There's only one project that does not involve research. In addition, each of your projects should incorporate a visual, either an image or an embedded video clip to augment your response. Doing so will add some appeal to your audience, right? Think about we'll be talking tomorrow about how illustration is a tool, but it can also allow your points to be more precise and clear. Your visual must be related to the project, and it must be referenced and discussed within the project. Unless you make the visual yourself, you must properly cite and reference the visual in your works cited. I can explain that when we get closer into it. So your expectations about 750 to 1,000 words, which is roughly 3 to 4 pages double-spaced without visuals. One visual that is referenced in the project, either an image or an embedded video. An MLA style works cited with 1 to 4 sources. Numbers of sources depends on type of project. Project 1 and 2 from Chapter 5 do not require research, and thus a works cited is not expected unless the visual you use is not made by you. You will submit to Turnitin.com. Your paper will not receive. That should be squared away through Canvas, so you should just have to submit through Canvas, and that should take care of it. And finally, use professional grammar and mechanics. Informal language may be appropriate in most of these projects, but such use should still be professional and appropriate to the genre. And we're going to be going over that all. I want you to think of this as a chance to explore your information in your topic a little bit differently and think about how to use these tools of analysis, of evaluation, and of reflection in different ways. Tomorrow, I'm going to be going over how to do rhetorical modes, and you will be practicing how to use these within your actual paper itself. So think about these different tools that you can use. You will be also thinking about how to be professional, how to use revision techniques, and simply how to just think about engaging your works in a meaningful way. So this is going to be your entry point into writing. It's 10%, but it is 10%. So you've got to make sure that it's clean, it's up to par. You've got your rubric that I've already talked about, so you want to make sure you want to look at that. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me and we can have conversations. but I will be reaching out to you about how we're going to go through this process. Thanks a lot. Have a good one. Bye.